If you were to ask anybody who their favourite animation studios are, you would probably be greeted with responses such as Pixar, DreamWorks, Warner Brothers, or maybe even Cartoon Network, perhaps Nickelodeon maybe. And of course, the most obvious answer, the beloved Disney studio. If you were to ask me, however, I would respond enthusiastically with the answer of Cosgrove Hall. The studio is often and lovingly referred to as England's answer to Disney, and it's hard not to see why. They are indeed the ones responsible for creating such legendary animated cartoons, such as Duckula, the Avenger Penguins, and the classic stop-motion animated Wind in the Willows. And of course, the titular Danger Mouse. A studio created in partnership by Brian Cosgrove and Mark Hall, and between them, the two created an animation powerhouse that was at its strongest from the early 1980s to the late 2000s when it met its unfortunate demise. Yet, at the height of their animation domination, they were only ever responsible for releasing one full-length animated feature film. A hand-drawn animated adaptation of world-renowned children's author Roald Dahl, and it was one of his personal favourite books that he wrote, the BFG. Now, it must be said that Roald Dahl did not like any film adaptation of his books. However, when Brian Cosgrove pitched his idea of how he envisioned the BFG in animated form with a watercolour picture of the BFG, Roald Dahl gave the instant thumbs up, and the 2D animated project was set in motion. And upon the film's completion, Dahl loved it, and it was the only film adaptation that he ever truly enjoyed, given a great big round of applause after his first viewing.
One of the special moments for me was that when the lights came up, he stood up and applauded. He was very pleased with our vision of his film.
Much to Brian Cosgrove's great relief. Originally broadcast on ITV, that's Channel 3 to American viewers, on Christmas Day of the year 1989, and I remember tuning in to watch it on its first nationwide broadcast. I was only 2 years old at the time, and this was the first film that introduced me into the world of animation. But what makes this film truly special?
What has us got here?
Well, let's find out as I dive in deeper and review the BFG. So the story of the BFG goes as such. A little orphan girl named Sophie gets abducted after discovering a giant in the middle of the night. The giant takes her to Giant Country, where it turns out, upon discovery, that the giant is actually a big friendly giant and not an evil giant. The two then develop a bond over snozcumbers and whiz popping, and also discovers that the BFG delivers dreams to little boys and girls at night. However, they come across one of the other giants eating children at night, and Sophie can't bear the thought of that happening again, so Sophie decides to put a stop to them once and for all by enlisting the help of Queen Elizabeth II. But of course, a story about giants eating children at night is a little far-fetched, so the two conduct a dream to get Queen Elizabeth on their side. So with the winning combination of the BFG and Sophie and the Queen, they put an end to the cannibalistic ways of the bad giants. Well, that is a pretty fun and imaginative plot for a book, but just how well does the plot adapt to film? Well, let's take a look at the core components that are at work in this feature. Here we go.
I is the big friendly giant. The BFG! That's me!
Let's begin with the big guy himself, the BFG, and the BFG is voiced by the Cosgrove Hall regular, David Jason. David Jason is a British TV legend over here in the UK, or rather Sir David Jason to be more precise. He's most notably known for his role as Inspector Frost, or rather the more infamous role as Del Boy on Only Fools and Horses.
Stone me, Rodney, a Millwall fan could have worked that out.
Sir David lent his vocal talents to a wide variety of other Cosgrove Hall characters.
Now you get some shut-eye, Penfold, and maybe the weather will be better in the morning.
Danger Mouse, Duckula, Toad, Chief Weasel, he's played them all, and many more besides. And his take on the BFG fits like a glove. as Sir David is able to bring the muddly-duddly English of the giant to life.
I had such twitch-tickling problems, you see, with words.
Adding a wonderfully playful and joyful tone to the character.
Swede from Sweden is all tasting sweet and sour.
In terms of appearance, his character design almost looks like a Disney character, as he's a lot more cleaner and more westernised in terms of his cartoony-based design when you compare this character design of the BFG to Quentin Blake's original illustrations. And the BFG's personality transitions well onto film, as it showcases his most magical moments such as catching dreams, as well as having his more down-to-earth moments where he's organising his dreams and locking away his nightmares.
Oh, he won't be scaring any little chittlers.
I bet Zordrak would love to get his hands on that cabinet. Overall, this film brings that crazy, wacky, lovable uncle from book to film. So next, we come to Sophie, the little girl who gets whisked away by the BFG. Originally, Brian Cosgrove was going to depict Sophie in similar vein to the Quentin Blake illustrations. However, he decided to change the design to Sophie to match Roald Dahl's granddaughter, who also wore big John Lennon glasses at the time.
He liked that. He liked that drawing. But I say then I saw this photograph of his granddaughter and I changed it. And we worked all the way through the film with this new design in, and at the end of it, he said we couldn't have bettered it.
Now, most people who watch this film and I've spoken to say they personally found the character of Sophie a tad annoying. I, on the other hand, am quite contrary to this reception of the character. I can understand that reaction to Sophie. She does scream quite a lot for most of the scenes that she's in. But who wouldn't act in fright after being taken away by a giant hand in the middle of the night and nearly eaten and exposed to man-eating giants? Those kind of reactions seem perfectly normal to me. She acts this way as the viewer can see this fantastic world of the BFG, causing disbelief about the giant catching dreams and delivering them at night.
I know there's nothing in here.
It's a wink swivel.
And when she does come to terms with it, she becomes a great asset to the BFG on his journey delivering the said dreams.
Come on.
Give them the one where they're clowns in a circus. I want to see.
She is also the one who comes up with the idea of making a stand against the other giants.
Is that what we'll do? We'll go to the Queen.
Over the course of the film, the BFG and Sophie develop a great bond, akin to a family, and Sophie gives the BFG the courage to stand up for himself and make a stand against the other giants, which allows the BFG to disassociate himself from their kind.
Human being. Yes, I'd rather be like one of them than like you.
It's fair to say that the BFG also helps Sophie grow as a person herself, as he gives Sophie the advice needed that puts out the plans in motion for the other giants' defeat.
You is never doing anything unless you try.
Which is pretty solid advice, and if you were to take one message away from this film and indeed book, it should be this one. The close ties that the characters of the BFG and Sophie develop throughout this film is so strong that you can tell that the BFG really cares for Sophie through simple little shots like this. And their bond is so well developed that leads to an emotional and tearful farewell at the end, as you don't want to see these two part ways. Of course, there's a supporting cast of characters in the film, namely Queen Elizabeth II, whom I will admit is animated rather stiffly, but then again, what do you expect from the character like the Queen? She has to be done in a way that shows a great sense of dignity and correctness one would expect from the Queen. I mean, this is hardly spitting image now, is it?
I'm the Queen, and I want bottoms in Britain.
You silly old picnic rug,
So as such, she isn't exactly the most exciting character in this film. However, she does handle the situation very calmly and rationally one would expect from the Queen. And then there's the other characters in the film, like Mary, voiced by Mrs. Slocum.
You're lucky to have me at all, Captain Peacock. I had to thaw my pussy out before I came.
What? She's just talking about her cat. Her character herself isn't exactly in the film for very long. She just acts as the character of comical disbelief to the situation.
Morning, Your Majesty.
Good morning, Your Majesty.
And then there's these two. two of my most favourite animated characters I've seen. They're just so exaggerated, both in terms of dialogue, performance, animation and character design. They're just brilliant. I could watch their conflict for hours. And then of course there's the commander of the army, who's just as serious as the Queen, and though isn't in the film for very long, the scenes he is in does make an impact. You could really feel the endangerment of that guy's life as they round up the giants. In all, the set of supporting cast does a wonderful job at bringing to life Roald Dahl's novel. Now we come to the great big unfriendly giants. Right off the bat we're introduced to the giants as somewhat primitive beings in terms of their appearance. These giants are depicted as great big intimidating, primitive, barbaric, disgusting, slobbering, frightening things from your nightmares. In this film they're just a mass of brute force and strength, and I totally enjoy the introduction of the first giant on screen that you see. That was frightening. And also, they're not very bright, but with their Hulk-like strength and toddler-like tantrum temperament makes you realise that these giants are not to be played with. And they come in a wide variety of ugly too. As you can tell, the staff behind the film added a nice individual aspect of vulgarness to each of the giants that allowed each giant to be individual in its own right. They used the giants very effectively in this film by not showing them too much, just at the right times, using them rather sparingly, but when you do see them on film, boy, do you ever feel their presence. And although they are dumb, their ringleader certainly isn't too thick, but he is one that must not be trifled with. And that's the Indian chieftain looking guy, the flesh lump eater, who has a really long fingernail that's used for, ooh, yeah, that. Yeah, I'm talking about you. It's fair to say that these giants are the film's main antagonists, and they add the scary fear and danger aspect to the film. Flesh Lump Eater confronts the BFG in the end, almost hurting him to a point, and then puts Sophie in some great peril that led for a really great final showdown as he taunted Sophie, trying to eat her. Luckily, the BFG arrives just in time to deliver a satisfactory defeat to the evil giant. That sound haunted me for ages. Overall, these giants not only look the part, but play the part, and as well as probably smell the part too from their appearance. And they add a great element of danger and peril into the film, and gives you a good scare as well, creating a great driving force and focus on the film in its later half. I personally think that Cosgrove Hall perfectly captured the very essence of what makes these giants so scary. And they did great justice in bringing Roald Dahl's nightmarish vision of giants to life by making them truly memorable through their ferocity. Visually, this film is great, and as soon as the film starts, it sucks you in with its amazing imagery that's not too dissimilar from another classic British TV show. Of course I jest. It is an amazing intro with some cool trippy music that matches that imagery that makes you feel like this film is going to be something quite special. Though admittedly the animation cells have dated throughout time, as the colours used to seem a bit more vibrant and more stronger, but that's understandable for a film that's come up to nearly 29 years old. What this film gets spot on though is its similar effect to Skywell's in the effect that it builds up a world through its imagery. Just take a gander at all these wonderfully painted backgrounds and these great art assets. There's a great depth of world building going on here, as you can tell with all these little background creatures that are added into the scenery, thus adding life into the environment. And with this fantasy style landscape, with those two suns in the sky, you certainly know you're not in Kansas anymore. And just look at the marvellous architecture in the background there. That begs the question, did these giants ever have a civilization, or indeed a society once? Did they try to build one? Why are there so many ruins in the landscape? This all just begs the question of what just happened to Giant Country? What was its past? And why is the BFG's home just so amazing? I'd love to go to visit giant IKEA and fit my house out with some of the things that he has. I just love that gargoyle sink. And of course, not to mention the wonderful equipment the BFG uses to make his frog scuttle and the apparatus he uses to make his dreams with. They feel very Dark Crystal inspired, but also lovely crafted and animated in a way that makes them feel feasible to work in real life. Of course, there's great effects gone into making the BFG's dream cave that still fills me with wonder and bewilderment at the magical sparkly bottles of dreams he keeps safe. And sure, some of the effects may seem dated now, but you know what? They actually work and don't detract anything from the film. And the visuals of the bubbly, fizzy, ethereal-like dreams works brilliantly. Every time I see a dream bottle, you know that's what they're going to be using for potions in Final Fantasy.
Whizz pop, whizz bang, feel the bubbles go down.
The music used in this picture was done by Keith Hopwood, an excellent musician who made for a great musical score for this film. Everything fits and works perfectly, from the magical fantasy-like music that adds to the otherworldliness of Giant Country, to the suspenseful Jaws-like music that adds an air of threat and dread in each of the scenes the bad giants are in. Not to mention that this soundtrack helps amplify the BFG travelling through the wormhole, transporting you to this other world. Of course, like all good family fantasy films, it has two notable soundtracks to mention. The first being my own personal favourite, the Whizz Popping song, which is quite possibly the best song that you can get on, yeah, that. It is a very catchy and jinglesome song, and makes you want to join in, on the singing that is. I've always found the lyrics to be quite the tongue twister, so I could never join in on the song. But good on David Jason for being able to sing this song flawlessly. And then there's the next song, which is a more generic kind of fantasy's 80s pop song, that, while admittedly is kind of cheesy, I do secretly enjoy it. It's a guilty pleasure, if you will. It works wonders showing Sophie flying through the air over these wonderful backgrounds that the team behind the picture have done, sung by Sharon Campbell. And you know what? This song doesn't feel too out of place in this film. It works beautifully. And again, while I said it's cheesy and generic, I do really like this song. There was going to be another song sung by Sharon Campbell, but for some unforeseen circumstance it didn't make it in. But you should definitely check this song out on iTunes, where you can listen to the full film's musical score, done by Keith Hopwood. And believe me, if you're into 80s music, you're going to love this soundtrack.
It's rotsome. Well, it's sickable, yeah.
If you should ever undertake the practice of animation, then I would full-heartedly recommend taking a look at this film and studying it, as there are some great 2D traditional hand-drawn animated practices and principles that are used very effectively throughout this feature. You can truly feel the technical prowess of the animators with every single pencil stroke in the film. And the animators look like they had some real great fun, creating some great scenes with the BFG himself, going from some really cool emotional bits of the BFG as he tries his disgusting snuzzcumbers, to the rather emotional bit where he thinks Sophie's dead.
What has I done?
As well as animation, you do great to study some film direction from here too, as there's some truly remarkable and great shots of suspense that builds up the drama. And of course the pacing in this film is absolutely top notch, as the story unfolds in a nice natural pace. Overall, this movie is a lovely piece of animation that, again, I would recommend to study for some truly great animation practices. Brian Cosgrove did a wonderful job of directing the BFG, and a tremendous job at translating Roald Dahl's book to film. And for a family fantasy adventure, I'd heartily recommend it, and probably even say it's probably one of my favourite ones of the genre. It's an excellent example of just why Cosgrove Hall are referred to as the British version of Disney, and it's obviously no wonder why Roald Dahl liked this film so much. It just got everything spot on. and it's definitely one of my top tier family fantasy animation films. And I will always be thankful for it introducing me into the world of animation and grateful for the wonderful memories it gave me. Hi there, and thanks for watching this month's video. If you liked it, then please drop a like, I would greatly appreciate it, and be forever in your debt. If you want to, you can check out my other 2 videos right here, and if you'd like to see more from me, then don't forget to subscribe. Feel free to follow me on Twitter and join my Facebook page as well if you'd like, for all my latest news and updates on my releases. I'm aiming for at least 1 video per month. Stay tuned for next month's video, because I'll be coming very soon. Till then, catch you later.